Okay, so put your name down. This is factoring by grouping. It is a method of factoring that only works when there are 4 terms. It doesn't always work when there are 4 terms, but for Algebra 1, we will tell you when you need to use it, and it will work for the examples that we are giving you to use using this method. We're not going to set you up for failure and be like, oh, try to factor by grouping and it may or may not work. We will only give you problems to factor by grouping that work with grouping. So, there's 4 terms, and there is not a GCF between all of them. So, like, if you look down here, I can't pull an X out of all of these, and I can't pull a number out of all of them. So I can't do a GCF first. Instead, I have to do something else. So this is our something else. The steps of factoring by grouping are to factor the GCF out of the first 2 terms, and then, crazy, factor the GCF out of the last 2 terms. It is called grouping because you do your GCFs in 2 groups. We will talk about step 3 and the magic of factoring by grouping in a second. Right now, let's do that on our first example. So I'm going to come down to our first example, and I am going to split essentially into 2 groups. So x cubed minus 3x squared is one group. And then the 15x minus 45 is another group. So you are thinking about the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. Out of x cubed minus 3x squared, are there any numbers that I can divide both of those by? 1, but that doesn't do me any good. Are there any, can I pull out any x's?
Yeah.
How many? 2 or x squared. So right over to the side, I'm going to write that my GCF number 1 is x squared. So I'm just making a note of that. Then I'm going to go ahead and divide out that x squared. So I'm going to put an x squared in front of a set of parentheses. And then I'm going to divide those first 2 terms by x squared. So I subtract my exponents. 3 minus 2 is 1. So I end up with just x, or x to the first. Put your phone away, please. And then right here, negative 3x squared divided by x squared. So the negative 3 will stay. And then 2 minus 2 is none. There should be no x's left on that second term. Okay. Any questions about that first GCF? Okay. Next one we're going to do then, we're going to find the GCF out of 15x and negative 45. What can I divide 15 and 45 both by? 5, but I can also divide by 15. I see it when I think time, 15, 30, 45, 60, like minutes in an hour. So yes, my second GCF is 15. Okay, I'm going to put a plus sign in front of it because I'm dividing out a positive 15. And then I'm going to divide 15x divided by 15. That's going to leave behind just the x. And then negative 45 divided by 15 is negative 3. Okay. Any questions about what we've done so far? Okay. It's essentially 2 GCF problems to start. So GCF of those 2, GCF of those 2. Any questions? Okay, here is what we do now. Look at your two sets of parentheses. Do you notice anything about them? What? The things inside the parentheses match. So x minus 3 and x minus 3, those are the exact same thing. If factoring by grouping works and you have done it correctly, that will happen. So you will be left with parentheses that match. You are going to write those down as the first part of your answer. So x minus 3, you write it down once. Because that x minus 3 is now a factor of this and a factor of this. So you pull out that x minus 3, and then your second set of parentheses is your first GCF plus your second GCF. So I've got my x squared here and my 15 here. So I put those together, x squared plus 15. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, if I were to multiply this out with a 2 by 2 box, I would get my answer. I would have x times x squared is x cubed, or I get my question. X times 15 makes my 15x. Negative 3 times x squared is my negative 3x squared. And negative 3 times 15 makes my negative 45. So I could multiply it back out and check my answer. I can do that with any factoring. Hey, moving on to my next one. Oh, actually, before we move on, let me read you this hint. Hint! If your third term is negative, your second GCF will always be negative. So there's a hint that we're about to use. Now moving on. So out of my first two terms, I've got 2x cubed minus 4x squared. What can I divide 2 and 4 by? 2. Okay? And I've got x to the third and x squared, so I can pull out an x squared. So my GCF out of my first two terms is 2x squared. Any questions about that? Okay, so let's go ahead and divide that out. 2x squared. Right here, 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so I'm not even going to write it. 3 minus 2, I've got x to the first, so I just have x. I could write 1x to the first, but it's also just x. Okay, and then I've got negative 4x squared divided by the 2x squared. Negative 4 divided by 2 is minus 2. And then 2 minus 2 is none. Okay, moving on. I have negative x plus 2. I just told you if your third term's negative, so 1, 2, third term's negative, we're going to divide out a negative. So I do have an imaginary 1 here. What can I divide negative 1 and 2 by? Only 1. But I want to pull out that negative. So I'm going to divide by negative 1. So my second GCF is just negative 1. So I'm going to put a minus 1 here. Negative 1x divided by negative 1 is positive 1x, or just positive x. And then 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. So we have to pull out that negative 1 so that what we leave behind now matches. So, speaking of which, look at what we have left behind. Now it matches. So, my first set of parentheses is going to be this matching x minus 2. I'm going to put it first. And then my second set of parentheses is going to be this 2x squared and this minus 1. So 2x squared minus 1. Okay. Any questions right now? Hey, I've got the last one. I've got 8x cubed plus 20x squared minus 6x minus 15. What can I divide 8 and 20 both by? Okay. So out of these two, I can divide out a 4. And then x cubed and x squared, I'm going to be able to pull out an x squared. So my first GCF is 4x squared. So I've got 4x squared here. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 3 minus 2 is just x to the first power, or just x. And then 20x squared divided by 4 is 5. 2 minus 2 is none. I've got 2x plus 5. Okay. Do not say the second GCF yet, because I want to phrase how you ask yourself what it is in a different way that might help you find some of the GCFs on your assignment. So you can ask yourself, do not answer my question. So what you could ask yourself is, what could I divide -6 and -15 by? Don't answer that. If you are struggling to ever find that, what you could also ask yourself is, you know you need to leave behind 2x plus 5. So look at either of these. So you can just look at the -15, and you could ask yourself, what do I need to divide -15 by in order to leave behind 5? So you can ask yourself that in two different ways. So either way you ask yourself, what's the greatest common factor of -6 and -15? Or what do I need to divide -6 by to leave behind 2? Or what do I need to divide -15 by to leave behind 5? I'm getting tangled over my words. Okay, now that we've had a chance to think about it in both different ways, what do we want that second GCF to be? Raise your hand if you think you know. Leilani, you're saying 3? Okay, I agree almost. -3, yep. So we want a -3 so that we leave behind a +2. So we're going to divide by a -3 here. So -6 divided by -3 is 2, and I still have my x. And then -15 divided by -3 is +5. And then we've left behind the same thing now. All right, so we've got 2x plus 5 and 2x plus 5. Those match each other. And then I've also got this 4x squared and this -3. That is my second part of my answer. Okay, any questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop.